In whenever. We are
It's
live.
the mayor.
Let me start off. I'd
Oh,
like
he's
to
not
start
here?
off. John could not make it, and happened to be talking to him, and he asked me to send his deepest regrets. He had a doctor's appointment that he made a long time ago, and he was afraid that if he missed it, it would be difficult to reset it back up. So he sends his deepest regrets. He can't make it today.
Okay, so Sandra, do you want to start?
I think I have to be elected to do that.
I move that Sandra be chair of this council meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Chris, I have a question for you. Greg, are you able to video in, or are you only on the phone?
I'm only on the phone. I can't do the video. I'm in a doctor's office, and I just can't do the video part.
Okay, Chris, is he allowed to vote since he's not video also?
Yes.
Okay, did that change since the COVID, or?
No, that's part of COVID. No, that's part of the statute. And by, he can vote.
I thought that that's why we couldn't use Skype.
I'll look it up to be sure that. I'm not seeing my pants. I would say let him vote. If it's a problem, then we'll just another vote later.
I'm sorry, you broke up.
I said, my advice is that he can vote. If I research it and find out I'm wrong, we can simply disqualify his vote later.
Is that acceptable to everybody?
It's fine with me. And Greg, when it comes time to vote, if you're able to turn your video on for a moment, that may help to clarify it.
Yeah, and Ron, be advised that in the council room, when Chris talks, we lose about every other or every third syllable. It's very quick and intermittent, but it's difficult sometimes to follow. So you might check your settings on that also.
You got it.
Thank you.
All right, today is Tuesday, September 8th, and we have a city council special meeting with one item on the agenda. All 6 council members are present, and the city attorney, Chris Gorman. The city clerk is also present. The purpose of the meeting is a second reading of Ordinance 591, 2020, an ordinance establishing a budget for the general fund of the city of Prospect for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2021. Does anybody want to move this?
I move that we bring to the floor for a second reading ordinance 591, 2020.
It was Mr. Fulcher. Do we have a second?
Second.
Randy Swan is the second. Is there any discussion?
I have a concern. I have a concern about the movement of the $20,000 from the LDG budget amount. We initially had $40,000 for the LDG litigation. We've spent $81.80 this year. Taking $20,000 out will get us down to $11,000 in that account. On October 21st, the judge has called for oral arguments on one of the pending cases. And it strikes me we're going to get ourselves very short on this important endeavor. We don't have to take the $20,000. There's other ways to balance the budget. The $12,000 for the Hunting Creek culvert, I think Ron Cundiff said it's not necessary to spend that this year. I talked with Al Pencefield. He agrees it's something that needs to be watched, but we don't need to spend $20,000 on that this year. I don't care how we do it, but I don't think taking $20,000 out of the LDG is appropriate. I think it's bad optics. It looks like we're not walking our talk in terms of our seriousness about the LDG litigation. And I move that $20,000 be taken out of some other account.
Is there a second?
I'll
Yes,
second that,
Josh.
Mr. Gregg.
Do you have a suggestion which account or how it got moved? Do you have a suggestion? Which one?
I think there's any number of ways. One is $12,000. We need 20,000, like 192, I believe, in order to balance the budget. I would suggest 12,000 out of the Hunting Creek culvert, because we don't need to do that this year. There's a couple other innocuous type activities, like $7,500 for keyless entry, $5,000 for landscaping on the west side. We can do all those later. And I just don't think it's appropriate to take $20,000 out of a pending litigation and cut ourselves short.
Let me check, Don. I thought there was only 12,000 in the study for the Hunting Creek culvert, not 20,000.
I agree, it's 12,000.
Okay. So you're saying the other would come from,
Could come from
keyless-
$7,500 on keyless entry.
keyless entry and the,
$5,000 on landscape.
on the west side. Okay.
Those things can be done later. The LDG litigation, it's coming on us in October, and I think we should be well funded.
Actually, I agree that we need to do something. The 40,000, if we've already spent $8,000 just for 2 months and nothing has really happened, I don't think that the 40,000 is going to be enough. And one of the things that I would hope we consider is that when we receive the COVID-19 money, that we have a budget amendment and fund this adequately. Because I still don't think 40,000, if we've already spent 8, is enough. I'd like to see a budget amendment as soon as we receive that money. And I think we should have a total of a minimum of 50,000 for this year.
Well, Chris, have you and the mayor discussed the potential costs of ongoing litigation now that these oral arguments, have come up?
Chris, you are muted.
You're muted.
Chris, unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Okay, thank you. I have not talked to the mayor about it from my standpoint. I think he has talked to Grover about it, but I'm in agreement with what you all are getting at and saying. You obviously, you had an unforeseen circumstance that you didn't know when you prepared the budget. And I think you will run out of money on that with Grover's fee.
Is 50,000 reasonable?
You
Given
say,
that we've already spent 8.
did you say 50,000?
Yes.
What-
That would be 10,000 more than what we started with.
Yeah, that would be reasonable. Sure.
But that's down the road. That's kicking it down the road. We've got the litigation at the end of October. It takes a budget amendment. It takes a first reading. It takes a second reading. I've not seen this council do anything very quick. And I don't think we ought to put ourselves in a position to have.
Let me if I can, if you amend today what's on the floor, I think my advice is you have to have another first reading of the budget. And what I would do, I'd refer you to the book we have from KLC, page 438 at the bottom. It says that an ordinance amending the budget must be enacted in the same manner as any other ordinance. So I think you have to make this a first reading if you're going to amend it today.
Well, it sounds like we'd have to amend it anyway if we're going to increase the amount.
Right.
Right.
But
So
you'd have
the
to
outcomes,
in a second reading to do it.
whereas if we have the budget amendment Let me ask Laura. Laura, have we received money yet?
Sorry,
Have we received the COVID money yet?
we have received some, yes.
How, have we received more than 3,600?
Yes,
How much total have we received?
over 200,000. I've told y'all about that before. I explained why the police spending looks skewy, why they have all negative numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna jump in.
if,
I'd like
if
to
we,
jump.
Go ahead, Greg.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I think this is correct, and I like the idea of using the COVID money, but Laura, doesn't that money have to be used in a certain way? I saw that on the police salaries there, so I'm not sure we're free to use the COVID money for just any purpose. So I don't know that for a fact, but I wanted to mention that.
I think you're correct, but what it does is it frees up general fund money.
Good.
If we take the COVID money and apply that to the police budget that we've basically proposed, then we can take the general fund money and use that to then help increase the legal fees. Can we, right, Chris? Can we?
So we could have a budget amendment at our meeting in,
I agree with that.
okay.
Okay.
So we could have a budget amendment at our September meeting that would increase the amount in line 5723. We could receive the COVID money. We could apply it to the police department as we need to, and then we could authorize an increase in this line item if that's what we chose to do.
Yeah, I like that myself, and I think that I heard someone say at one of the previous meetings that there is an additional 100 grand possible by the end of the year. I yield to Laura on that, but so it would be a total of 300K by the time the year was over.
That's correct. You've already received 200 of them.
Correct.
Just one.
If I could just offer a suggestion, if you're talking about amending the budget already at a meeting in less than 2 weeks, doing what you're suggesting is going to involve some significant changes to the workbook. Maybe just defer this and represent the entire thing for a first reading in September. Because there's going to be a lot of work involved adjusting the numbers.
Well, it only, if the workbook is passed, you don't have to change the workbook in the future. We just do the budget amendments.
But the workbook is the budget.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what has to be amended.
But you don't have to do the entire document. You only do the lines that are appropriate, which are 2 lines.
There are going to be more lines involved in that.
Well, yes, but for other items, right? Not necessarily just for this.
No,
I think
no, just for this.
and really it's you all who needs to make explicitly clear what lines are to be changed and what gets moved elsewhere. And that's why I'm saying maybe I think it would be best to hold off, make sure we've got all our ducks in a row and start over at the September meeting.
Well, I don't think starting over is an option. I think, and I sympathize with what you're saying, Laura. I think were we to have a second reading on this today and then have the separate budget amendment ordinance, it would accomplish what you just said. Is that not right?
Well,
But-
there's the issue of the fact that if you all pass this today, technically it does not take effect until it's been published, and we have to pay to publish it. You can't amend it until it's taken effect, so now we're paying to publish it twice.
Gee, it sounds like from a process perspective, it makes more sense to find find a way to avoid taking $20,000 out of the LDG.
How much does it cost us to publish?
A few $100s.
A few
each
$100.
time. Yeah.
Like under
Yeah,
a
we could
thousand?
take the-
Yeah, I think it's like 200.
We could take the 12K out of the culvert and the 7,500 out of the locks, the key, we call it the keyless entry. And that would get us back to where we were. That's roughly 20,000. And then we could add later. We could, that would be a real simple thing that we could accomplish.
But if we use the money that's released to the general fund, we don't have to do that. We can just
That's true.
do the one step.
And that may not be enough money anyway. We would have to
It
go
might
through
not.
this
You're
step again.
Well, no, that's why
Mhm.
if we pass the budget today, then I probably would make another motion that we consider increasing the amount going to the LDG line. It's 5723. And it was at 47, and I would go to the fact that we would increase by another 10, which means that our budget amendment, when it goes through, would be putting in 30,000.
Well, I'm all for putting more money in because these are arbitrary numbers. I mean, I don't know whether 12,000 is enough, probably not, or 20 more thousand or 100,000. They're all arbitrary figures.
Well, but we know 11,000 is not enough.
We don't know that.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Well, I just asked Chris, he thought 50 was
And
realistic.
I do too. But my point,
Well, you know,
it's funny money at this point. We don't know.
I kind of like the idea of knowing exactly what it's going to look like. We're not in a huge hurry, and we've taken all this time so far in making sure that we have a really good budget. So another week or so is not going to hurt us. Why don't we let Laura do the numbers, crunch the numbers, the line items, and let's start over. It's not going to hurt us all that much.
The hearing is for the LGG is not till the end of October. By the time we get the bills for that, we should roughly know what it's going to cost. So what if we just pass this now? Everyone gets their back pay, whatever's, we get caught up, and then in the October meeting, so we got 2 more months. We get the COVID money in, we rearrange some money, and if we have to alter the budget at all, that's probably not going to solve it. That's probably not going to be enough ultimately for the rest of the year. You're absolutely correct. But we know we're going to have to amend this budget again at some point. That some point might be the end of October. It could even be November. But at least we can kind of, I mean, I would say the 12,000 should get us for the next 2 months. I mean, if something crazy comes in and lawyer fees go way up, then we could have, I guess, a
Well,
special meeting immediately.
We could even, in our September meeting, we could have the budget amendment, first reading of the budget amendment.
You're absolutely right, but then we're just
Take us
throwing random
to-
numbers at it anyway.
Well, they're going to be random. They're going to be random to the extent that hopefully we'll pass something before we don't have money in that account.
Correct.
And I just as soon go ahead in September and start that process of increasing.
Because I know all 6 of us support fighting the LGG project, so there's no fight there. So,
Right.
but the good thing about that, passing it today is we kind of get this all squared away, and then we will definitely increase it as the money is available.
Are you calling for the question?
I'll call for the question.
Second,
It's been called and seconded. This needs to be a roll call vote. And what would you like to make the motion as to what the roll call vote would be about? Randy?
Right, now that's what I was gonna say, is what exactly are we voting on? Because we have the original motion to approve the second reading, and then Don made a motion and Greg seconded, and
So it would be it would be Frank's original motion.
Frank's
Frank, do you want to
original motion.
restate your motion for the record, please?
I move that the ordinance 591, 2020 be moved to the floor for a second read.
Okay, and,
It's been seconded.
And
It's
I
already been
seconded.
seconded, so we're ready for a vote.
okay, one other, this would be the entire document as was stated at the last meeting, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, Frank Fulcher,
Yes.
Randy Swan,
Yes,
Don Gibson,
No,
Herb Schul.
Harold Shue.
Herb Schultz.
Yes.
That was terrible. Greg Hilsman,
No,
Sandra Leonard, I vote yes. So that's 4-2 and that passes.
I'd like to make a comment. As we work towards finalizing the budget and going forward, I just want to explain a little. Initially, I had considered approving and working towards a much more abbreviated budget. As we have worked on the budget in detail this year, I have changed my thinking. The council basically has two primary responsibilities. The first is to approve a budget that funds the city operations and then pass that budget on to the mayor and the staff to implement it. And the other is to legislate by approving ordinances, municipal orders, and such. I think all of us, except Don, who had the luxury of not having to run, we all promised fiscal prudence, transparency, and public health and safety as three of our largest priorities, and this budget does that. But by approving the detailed line item budget, we uphold our pledge to our tax-paying citizens, our voters, to have a high degree of transparency. Our citizens can see, as well as the council, the staff, how much is spent, what it is spent on, from which budget it is spent. And in that sense, I think we have a more informed citizenry. They can better frame the questions. They can better understand the budget. They may comment on the budget, and I'm hoping that they will, so that if they see the budget and feel that it is out of alignment with our citizens' priorities, they let us know that, and we can take that into consideration. So future budgets are not built in a vacuum. It also, I think, in the long run is going to make the budgeting process much quicker next year and in the future. It's going to be more accurate and easier to track because it will help the staff see exactly where to allocate funds, where exactly the revenues are coming from, and in that sense, be able to advise the council and request for budget adjustments throughout the year in a timely manner so that we can make those. Circumstances will change most assuredly, particularly in 2020. If we've found out anything is the de rigueur rule of the day, it's change. This council, from all the conversations I've had with them, certainly stand ready to transfer or to defer or to delete or to add funds in a very timely manner so that the city staff can work efficiently and effectively on our operations. With video conferencing now and availability, we have the ability within literally 48 hours to pass an ordinance and respond. And the mayor does have, by KRS statute in emergency situations, an opportunity to do that without having to wait for a first and second reading of an ordinance. This year's budget was extremely difficult. We have deferred expensive maintenance on some very large projects for a long time, and we need to know what it is going to cost and approximately when those may be needed, and start conserving funds at this time for those purposes. If not, I fear that we will have to look at future tax increases. So for that reason, I have voted yes for this budget. And I hope that others will keep in mind that this is utmost, probably one of the best forms of government transparency that we can offer to our citizens. That's the end of my comments.
When you're talking about transparency, how are you talking about providing the budget information to our citizens?
I think we should put the budget on the website. It is a public document. It is available under a Freedom of Information Act request. And when the budget is finalized, we publish it. But then we also should put it on our website, just like we do meeting minutes, just like we do ordinances and other documents.
Any other comments? I do too. I do too.
Second.
Motion first and seconded. Shall we have a vote to adjourn? Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
6-0.
Nobody wants to stay longer? What's wrong? What's wrong with us?